Hey guys, Gaming Chief here and welcome back to another video. Today we'll be taking a look at all the characters that we will be receiving on the release of Tower of Fantasy. For each character, we'll go through their elements, their class rules, some strengths and weaknesses, and finally, leaving you with some tips and tricks. Now this guide isn't going to go deep into each character, but should give you more of a general look at how each character plays and a few strengths that they got. Starting the list off, we have Tsubasa. Tsubasa's weapon is an ice bow, and she has a shatter rating of 4 with a charge rating of 11.5. Her playstyle is one you would typically expect of an archer, staying at range and DPSing enemies down. But not only that, she has some pretty good supporting capabilities with her dash attack. Her dash attack hits all enemies within its path, doing pretty good damage, while also increasing her own damage dealt by up to 24%. Which then gets further increased to 40% upon obtaining 6 copies. One major downside though for Tsubasa is that since she is a bow wielder, her basic attacks don't do too much damage, and in team play, her projectiles can actually be blocked by your allies. With this all in mind, Tsubasa really fits the role of a support DPS, being able to swap her in during crucial times when you need to do weapon charge, and then swapping her back out after you obtain the buffs from her dash attacks. Next character on our list is Shiro. Shiro's weapon is a physical chakram, and she has a shatter rating of 10 with a charge rating of 6. Her playstyle is one where you are constantly swapping in between brawling and a mid-range fighter type. Since she does heavily rely on her active skill in order to do her damage, a lot of the time you'll be staying in close range because her active skill creates a small cage that allows your chakrams to bounce in between. And now if you're fighting an enemy and they're mobile and they walk out of the cage, there goes the majority of your DPS. Overall, I think Shiro is a pretty fun character to play, and if you're able to play her right, she does do decently well at breaking enemy shields. For our next DPS character, we have Samir. Samir's weapons are dual-wielded electric guns, and she has a shatter rating of 6 with a charge rating of 10.7. Samir's playstyle is that more of an aerial demon, meaning that while she's in the air, that's when she's doing the majority of her DPS. Now, her air attacks do AoE damage, and also create pretty good weapon charge. I also say that her air attack is pretty safe. This is PvE only, as in PvP, enemies can just take you out of the sky. The biggest thing that Samir has going for her is that she is one of the few characters that is very good at 0 copies. So if you're free to play and looking for a pretty good DPS early on, Samir is the character that you're probably going to want to go for. Now next on the list, we have King. King's weapon is a fire scythe, and he has a shatter rating of 12.5 and a charge rating of 5. Now, not only is King's shatter rating really high, but after obtaining 1 copy of King, upon breaking his shield, he will then also apply a pretty good damage over time effect. King's abilities are also quite strong, as all of them have very good AoE damage. He does have the major flaw in that his abilities are actually quite easy to interrupt, and his basic attack sequence is very long. Now, with all that in mind, King is one of the best characters for breaking enemy shields. So if you really want a character that is extremely good at breaking shields while also applying effects after shield break, he's your guy. You can see why they call him King. Now finally, for the last DPS character of standard banner, we have Crow. Crow's weapons are electric twin blades, and he has a shatter rating of 6 with a charge rating of 8. Now don't let these ratings deceive you, as he is quite a strong character after you raise him a bit. Now do keep that in mind that I did say, yeah, he is quite strong after you raise him. So that means he is extremely reliant on copies and also getting some key sets. Another thing for Crow is that his skill for it is quite high, meaning that if you're not willing to take the time to learn his playstyle, you're not going to be able to effectively DPS. But if you think you're up for the challenge and you think you also are able to get his copies, this is your character. Next up for the standard banner characters, we have Meryl. Meryl's weapon is an ice greatsword. She has a shatter rating of 12 and a charge rating of 4. Now Meryl is also quite strong at 0 copies as she has a very high shield break stat, and all of her abilities really revolve around shield break. One big thing you have to note though for Meryl is that when in team play, her discharge skill creates a wall, a circular wall, and now this wall is actually impassable by allies unless they want to jump over it. And it can also nullify all your archer's damage. So be careful when you're going to use her discharge skill. And now for our second defense character of standard banner, we have Huma. Huma is rather unique in that her weapon is a 2-formed shield and axe. She has a shatter rating of 10 with a charge rating of 10, which makes her a pretty good all-rounder. Huma also sees a lot of play in PvP early on. She is probably one of the 4 to 5 meta characters, as she rocks very good CC, able to lock down a target for quite a good period of time, while her axe form does quite a good amount of damage. I would say her only real flaw is that, yeah, she does have 2 forms, so that means it takes twice the amount of time to really learn how to effectively play her. You gotta make sure that you're not swapping forms when you're trying to do a full combo. Next up, we have Zero. Zero is the first of the 2 support characters that we'll be talking about of the SSRs, and he uses a fire cube as his weapon. He has a shatter rating of 5 and a charge rating of 13. That makes him good at creating weapon charge. Now Zero is an interesting support as at 0 copies, he does not heal, but is able to provide immunity and shields for your allies. He gains his heals at 1 copy and actually gains damage buff orbs at 5 copies. He's one of the most mobile supports as well as his dodges have a chance not to be used, allowing him to dodge possibly up to 8 times in a row. Now since Zero is a support character, he's not one that you'll be bringing for DPS, but if you do want to create weapon charge, he's probably one of your best choices. And now for the last character of standard banner SSRs, we have Coco Ritter. Coco Ritter rocks an ice staff as her weapon. She has a shatter rating of 4 and a charge rating of 12.5. Now for Coco Ritter, I mean, there's not really much to say about her. She's a healer. She heals quite a bit. And she does have a few team buffs and like debuffs for enemies, but hey, I mean, you want to use Coco Ritter? You're a healer, my guy. Like, downside, she's a healer. You're not going to get much else. Moving on. Limited banner. We have Claudia as our first one. Now, Claudia is a physical sword for her weapon. She's got a shatter rating of 7.5 with a charge rating of 12. Claudia, like Tsubasa, really fits the role of a support DPS, as a lot of her abilities actually revolve around buffing you to enable your other characters to do more damage. Another thing though with Claudia is that since the majority of her damaging attacks are going to be within the air, she's going to eat up a lot of your stamina and endurance. Next up, probably one of the strongest characters that will actually be coming out for a while and is still quite relevant in CN is going to be Cobalt. Cobalt has a fire shotgun as her weapon. Got a shatter rating of 6.5 and a charge rating of 10. Now having a shotgun is pretty nice as this allows her to hit multiple enemies at once, or she can hit one enemy multiple times. Does a lot of damage. And all her skills apply burn effects. Having increased copies really just increases this, and upon reaching 6 stars, she really becomes activated as she is able to lower the cooldown of her active ability. Majority of her damage does come from her active ability, so if you really want to use Cobalt, better save up. Not only that, she is quite reliant on her Cobalt chipset in order to do another additional burn and some more dodges. But hey, if you're a heavy whale and you want a DPS character, this is your character. Free to play, I wouldn't advise you against Cobalt. Just know that if you really want to maximize a character, Cobalt is going to be one of the harder ones that you can max because she is limited. And finally, on to the last group of characters that we'll be covering. Starting the SR characters off, we've got Hilda. Hilda has an ice cannon as her weapon. Got a shatter rating of 10 and a charge rating of 10, but to be completely honest, these numbers are a lie. She is debatably the worst SR character in the game. But hey, if you want to grab a group of 30 people and just set up Hilda turrets around a boss, feel free to do that. Frankly, it looks awesome. Next up for our SRs, we've got Echo. Now, Echo has an electric polearm as her weapon. She has a shatter rating of 11 with a charge rating of 7. She has pretty good shatter for an SR and is actually able to fit the role of a support DPS, since she does have a damage increasing buff of 15%, while also debuffing the enemy by 15%. Now, since she is an SR, her overall stats compared to SSR are going to be lower, but she is usable early on. Moving on, we have Bai Ling. Bai Ling is a physical bow user with a shatter rating of 6 and a charge rating of 10. Now, just like Tsubasa, she is a bow user, meaning that her basic attacks are quite weak, and her attacks, once again, can be blocked by your allies. She also can somewhat fit into the role of a DPS support, as her abilities and dash attacks apply an effect that increases the damage that enemies receive. Now, this is unlocked upon obtaining copies, so without many copies of her, she's pretty so-so. Now, next up is probably one of the most underrated SRs, but yet one of the strongest characters in the game. She's going to be NA. NA rocks an ice hammer, and she has a shatter rating of 10 with a charge rating of 6. Now, her attacks are a bit on the slower side, but they do pack a punch. And she is insanely good at indefinitely CCing an enemy, so long as her skill's up. But it's up for like 30 seconds, so that's a lot of damage you can do. But not only that, her active skill allows you to spam her dash attacks. And her dash attacks are where the majority of her damage is. And if you can spam it, well, there goes your DPS skyrocketing. Not only that, but because she is of the defense resonance, she is one of the 3 defense characters in the game that will get on release. So if you're really looking to be a tank, NA actually is a pretty viable option for you. And now finally, for the last character that we'll be going over, Pepper. Pepper uses an electric staff as her weapon. She has a shatter rating of 4 with a charge rating of 10. Now Pepper, to be completely honest, budget Coco Ritter. I mean, you look at her attack sequences, you look at her abilities, it's basically Coco Ritter, but a bit worse. Now, there is one thing that she can do that Coco Ritter can't do, and that is when her active skill is up, she provides a 60% damage reduction and immunity for all teammates within the range. But this is only unlocked at 6 copies. So until you get 6 copies of Pepper, she's basically a budget Coco Ritter. But hey, SR option for healing, right? And with that being said, this wraps up the video of all the characters that we will be receiving on release of Tower Fantasy. Make sure to let me know what you think of all the characters down below, and feel free to comment any questions about Tower Fantasy. I'll try to answer them to the best of my ability. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell, and I hope to see you in the next video. Chief, out.